What is up, everybody? Welcome to another video here on the channel, and today is car maintenance day. I'm going to be doing a few things to the HHR today, which I just brought out, and if time permits, then we'll dive into the Camaro as well. Before we dive into this video, however, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload here to the channel. So routine maintenance with the HHR. It's super straightforward. The car is running really well, and we're getting better and better each time I get a tune update from James Brakes. Now, this could go a whole lot faster if I actually would get the car out and log it more for James, but each time we're getting more progress out of it. It's running smoother and smoother and getting more power out. However, I always do a routine maintenance every year. The beginning of the car show season here in Pennsylvania, I always make sure that I do an oil change. This time in particular, however, I'm also going to do a coolant flush because there is a fitting I have to replace on the back of the block where I have coolant lines running to my actuator and then back into the block. The fitting I have going into the block, I should have a banjo bolt, and I don't. I have a direct AN fitting to NPT. That's causing a bit of an issue, and I have a minor leak of coolant. Additionally, it still looks like there is a minor oil leak as well. It's not coming from the back of the valve cover or anything else. I believe it is my oil return line coming from my turbo back into the engine block. If you remember from earlier videos, I actually made up an AN line that goes A&N into the block fitting, but the part of the line that goes into the block fitting, I kind of just shoved in there and put a hose clamp. That thing is coming loose all the time. I actually found a replacement line that does have a piece that's clamped onto that fitting that goes into the block. That should prevent this issue. So first thing I gotta do, get this car up on jack stands and go from there. All right, so car is high enough. I can easily get underneath now. So step number one is to drain all of the coolant out of the system. So first step is I'm going to remove that petcock on the passenger side of the radiator, get all the coolant out of there, then undo that fitting on the back of the engine block. That'll get any remaining coolant out of the system. Then I can replace that line. All right, so once you're underneath the car passenger side on an HHR, the petcock to drain all the fluid out of the radiator is actually right up here. So this plastic fitting or this plastic trim piece that you have here, you just slide that out of the way, and you can kind of fish your hand up there, loosen that. Obviously I'm not gonna be able to do it with just my thumb, and then all of the coolant will actually drain out of this weep hole right here. So that's step number one. All right, so now that that's open, took the bumper off to make it a little bit easier to get to that petcock. Just gotta let it drip. One way to get it to drip just a hair faster is to make sure you remove the cap for the coolant system. You just sit and wait. Once that's done, lower the car a little bit. That'll help kind of get the fluid back up front. And then remove that fitting on the back of the block. All right, so now that that drained as much as we possibly could get out, the next step is to come all the way down here. So if you look, this fitting right here that I'm tapping needs to be a banjo bolt. Not sure if you could see it from here, but it's not. It's an NPT to an A&N, and that's going to leak no matter what I do because it needs to be a banjo bolt, different designs, all of that. So you can see all of this coolant. It's down here. It's a little bit over here. So we have to undo that fitting and put a banjo bolt on, go from there, which means more coolant is going to be spewing out of this thing. So I'm gonna get out of the way, get a wrench, and go from there. All right, well, that's another wonderful thing. It looks like AC condenser is leaking because that has green dye in it. You can see it runs all the way up here. That's gonna be a fun little replacement at some point. Always something, right? So there's the coolant. You can see, don't worry about all that sediment. That's from the trees around the garage falling in. But so this coolant was replaced. The video that I uploaded a few years ago where the thumbnail has the coolant all over the drip pan and everything in the old garage. So now that that's all drained out, I have a drip pan down there, the plywood, all that. I just got to clean all of that up, and then I can get under there and start putting in the proper fitting. So here we go. All right, so it's the next day. Here's the recap. So this is a 4AN fitting, right? But this particular fitting needs this end to go through it in order for it to actually work. Now, yesterday, what was going to happen was I was going to be using this. So it's the original banjo bolt, this adapter here, but there were way too many fittings. I ended up having 3 additional fittings going between them. So rather than doing that, I just ordered a 6AN to 4AN reducer. So that'll go in between, and then that will go like that. So less fittings equals less opportunity for leaks, better result. Now, the funny thing is that this actual fitting right here is from Vibrant Performance. They actually make a banjo bolt adapter for 6AN, but the bolt itself is a different thread count than the one for the Ecotech. So you use an original bolt from your Ecotech or your LNF, you put the fitting on, and then that gives you everything that you need. Now to show you how everything would work, here's the 6AN to 4AN reducer. Actually threads in all the way, no problem. And then there is the 4AN fitting. So now that has to go into the block, and then we're set to go. Best part about an Ecotech is that it's like you're putting 10 pounds of Duke into a 5-pound bag. So here we are, started getting the bolt just by hand for now. And I would rather start it by hand because then I know it's not gonna cross thread. Hey, got it. Okay, so now to show you. All right, so the way that I have this run, because my actuator is water cooled, you have this fitting here. So it's, again, a 6 to 4AN reducer. You have a 4AN line that runs all the way through and actually connects right up there into the actuator, and then out and back into the block, which is underneath those lines there. Now, because this is making contact, although this has heat wrap around it, I'm gonna put heat wrap around this AN line only because it never hurts to be extra safe, but all of that is connected. So now all I have to do is get underneath the car and just make sure everything is completely tight so that way nothing leaks out, and we're done. This stuff is always great to have on hand. It's made by DEI. It's a heat shroud, and it is Velcroed, so it allows you to wrap everything. You don't have to worry about putting this on the line prior to installing, and you can cut to length, which is the best part about it. I've used this before for other parts in earlier videos, but you can see I have a good amount here to wrap around that line. This might work out beautifully. If I have to cut it, it might be a minor cut, but that's it. We'll get that on the line, and then we'll go from there. And look at that. Didn't even have to cut it. Perfect length. Goes right from there all the way down to the fitting in the block. So now all we have to do is just tighten everything up with AN wrenches. So I need the AN6, AN4, and a socket to make sure that the banjo bolt into the block is all tightened up. Once that is tightened up, fill it up with coolant, and then check for leaks. Trying to see if we can get a good view for y'all. Let me get my hand through here. So this bolt right here, that's the bolt that we tighten, banjo bolt. All the fittings you can see are going up that way. This is a 19mm, so I was able to put a 19mm socket on it with three extensions, which had it coming all the way down here, so I could get a socket ratchet on and tighten that down. That's secure. That shouldn't be going anywhere. So now all of these other fittings that we have on here, remember we're going a 6AN to a 4AN. So this one right here, let's see, can you see that? Yeah, right there. That's a 6AN. So I have to get my AN6 wrench, 6AN, whatever you want to call. So fish my hand up there. Now I tightened it by hand up top, which you all saw. Just putting this AN wrench on it, giving that little extra snug is going to secure. It's also going to confirm that this is not going to come loose on us in any way, which is exactly what we need. So now we need to tighten that right there. Now, another thing I wanted to show everybody, I thought I had an oil leak because I could see that there was residue building up all along the subframe here. However, if I look over here, it looks like I have my AC condenser is leaking. So whoever owned this car before me, actually, I met the owner. There was obviously dye in this system. There was a leak somewhere at some point because when we took everything apart, it spewed green dye all over the place. And if you look carefully, you can see that there's green dye on the subframe. It's running along the block here, like so, and even this right here. So all of this, what I thought was an oil residue buildup from the fitting for the turbo return, turns out it's not. Safe to say that at least this is done. So that next step, as I struggle to get up, is to put coolant in the car, make sure we're all set to go. So we're just going to fill it up with coolant, 50/50 Dex Cool, the orange stuff, and then we can check for leaks, get under the car, see if anything starts pissing out anywhere, and then go from there. Could go a little bit further. That's where I'm going to stop for right now. I'm actually going to put you right down here, because if we have an issue, you're going to see it start leaking out. And I'm also going to get my flashlight and roll under there once I get the car started to see if we have any leaks. So we actually have a super minor leak. It's up here, and let me see if I can get up here and grab this flashlight. So that line that is coming off the actuator, the other part of it that is connecting to all those adapters down there, I have to tighten that a bit more. There's a little bit, we're talking a drop that's not even bigger than that right there on the charge pipe. And there's my pinky for reference. That's actually on there. So we need to tighten that up to make sure, because, you know, we don't want that leaking. I don't want that leaking. Car's a little warm right now, however, so can't really do much with that. What I can do, however, is burp the system. So if you're unfamiliar with burping a system here on an Ecotech, what you do is you let the car run. You can see the levels actually dropped. You top it off a little bit more, give it just a little bit of throttle, gets all the air out of the system, all of those pockets and whatnot, and then you should be good to go. So got to do that, and then can start putting this thing away. All right, and like that, car is put back together. Car is back on the ground. Also, what I noticed, making a ton of noise, which again, I believe is the AC condenser. I just sprayed it down with brake clean, and you could see all of this neon green fluid coming out of it, which clearly is showing that there's a leak somewhere. Who knows? I'll have to do some research, but it doesn't sound good. So I think that it's on its way out. So now, time to get her back in the garage. So for now, I have a drip pan underneath the car just to make sure if anything is continuing to leak or if I didn't clean anything. It'll drip down in the pan. I'll be able to look and see what's going on. Got to check out what's going on with that AC condenser. Good news is, however, that I don't have an oil leak. Awesome. And that oil return line that I have on the car is actually okay, the one that I made. So we're just gonna keep running it for now. Once I see that there's a leak or an issue, then I'll reassess and install that additional fitting that I had. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Once again, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel in regards to the HHR or the Camaro. Until next time, see you later.